Okay, and we're back, and we're on page 263, just making sure we're all on the same page, to coin a phrase, and we're looking at healthy choices for physical activity. Now, there's a number of things we can do to make sure that we're staying healthy and staying active, but these are a couple of things that I'll advise you. Some things that staying physically active can do is help you sleep better. Because if you've done things throughout the day and you've moved your body and gotten exercise, well, your body's going to be more inclined to say, okay, yeah, they want to sleep. It's time to go to sleep. Get your rest. Reducing blood pressure and increasing brain and heart health, lowering the risk of some cancers, maintaining a healthy weight, improving bone strength, and reducing the risk of falls. The more active you are, the more you move around, the more your body's accustomed to moving around, and the more it stays good and active, and you get all those nice blood flow and get the lymphatic system going and get all the autoimmune system working, and it really helps you in the long run just staying healthy overall. You want to be building muscle. You want to be building muscle, especially in your younger years, because as you get older, your muscle mass does decrease, doesn't it? We talked about that. So the more fit and the more muscle and the more strength you have when you're young, it kind of sees you into your older age. See it as investing in your future, okay? The more strength and the more muscle you have, the more active and more effective you'll be when you get older. The less you'll have to rely on assistive devices and canes and wheelchairs and walkers and things along those lines, providing nothing happens to, that's untoward. But for the most part, yeah, you want to be doing a lot of good exercise and staying as fit as you can so you can stay active as late as you can in life. How much exercise is enough? Well, it doesn't mean necessarily going to a gym or anything like that. And for adults, anywhere between like 18 to 65 years of age, the CDC recommends at least 150 minutes a week of moderate activity, like brisk walking, just a good power walking, at least that much every week. And 2 days a week of activities that strengthen muscles. So maybe some light cardio, maybe a little bit of running, maybe some weights, maybe just some squats, maybe some isometrics, whatever it is that you need to do with, when you can find the free time to do it, it's all good. Even if you're in the car and you're driving and all you're doing is some muscle tension and reflection, some tension reflection, then you're still getting an exercise. You're still working your muscles. So find little opportunities, little windows of time during your day where you're really not doing anything else. I mean, the best time is when you're watching TV or you're watching videos on your phone or whatever, just relaxing. Take that time. Yeah, you're relaxing your mind, but work your body. That way you're getting some exercise while you're having some free time and relaxing. So it's beneficial. Don't see it as a chore. See it as an opportunity to improve yourself. There are a few tips here for starting and maintaining physical activity. Just make sure you do things you enjoy doing. Don't follow someone else's workout routine just because you see that they have the body you want. Their body is different than your body, and they'll get different results doing different things than what you'll get results doing, maybe the same things. So don't just follow somebody else blindly. You can listen to advice and you can try different things and see what works for you, but don't think that there's one end-all be-all way to get the fitness or the body or the health or the diet that you want. Okay? Find what works for you and find something that you'll enjoy so you're more likely to stick to it. Get family or friends to help do the activity with you. Like I was saying, how my wife does things with me. It's very nice. And remember that, and I love this one, something is better than nothing. Don't get down on yourself because you can't exercise as much as you'd like, or you sign up for a gym membership and you're only going 1 day a week. I'm not getting it. It's not worth it. Well, okay, maybe the gym membership's not worth it, but doing the exercise is worth it. Okay? Even if you're doing something, it's better than doing nothing, because nothing just slides you backward. The worst case scenario is if you're doing something is at least you're treading water. You're maintaining what you have. Don't lose what you've earned throughout your life by doing nothing for your body. At least do the minimum exercise your body needs to maintain what you've already built throughout your life, That's the thing you should always do, at least the bare minimum for. And use everyday routines. If you're already doing things that sort of lend themselves to exercise, like maybe you work in an office and you're in a cubicle, right? Well, bring a 10-pound dumbbell into the cubicle with you. And then every day, for 5 minutes a day, while you're poking around the computer or whatever you're doing, just have one arm working that dumbbell. for about 5 minutes out of every hour of the day. A little bit here, switch arms, a little bit here, then maybe we do like a little bit of light lifting here and whatever. And wow, you're going to notice an improvement to your arms very quickly from a 10-pound dumbbell. But as long as you're doing it regularly and routinely, you're going to get some nice tone in your arms. You're not going to get big old muscles, but you'll get tone and healthy, strong muscles. Okay? So that's what you want to be focusing on, is regular, normal, everyday exercise on routines that work with you. All right, for page 264, over to the next page now, some general guidelines. Always remember, if you're going to do any kind of exercise other than just like a daily walk or a little stretching or something like that, that you prepare your body for it, especially if you're not used to doing it. Stretch, okay? Get the body moving, stretch, work those muscles, stretch the muscles appropriately. Be careful when you're stretching because, man, you can hurt yourself stretching if you do it wrong, okay? It's not just the exercises that'll get you. So do make sure you're doing all your good stretching and everything. And you know, even if you're not going to exercise that day, it's still a good idea to stretch for about 10 minutes a day. You know, first thing when you wake up in the morning, get out of bed, do a few stretches, you know, put your hand against the bed, lean back, you know, pull the calves, stretch those calf muscles, you know, stretch the ankles and the Achilles tendon a little bit, you know, get up there, bring the quads up and stretch the quads, do the cross across the body, and then turn the neck and really stretch your neck good when you first wake up and down. There's all kinds of nice exercises you can be doing to, you know, keep the flexibility, because muscles, they will get stagnant if they're not used. And then when you need them, they won't respond. And man, if you need your muscles and they're not responding, you are suffering, because you'll be hurting the next day and you won't be able to accomplish what it is you needed to accomplish. So keep those muscles in shape. Be comfortable and exercise at a comfortable pace. Use a talk test, which basically means, like, as you're walking, you should be able to talk, carry on a conversation, right? But if you're doing so little exercise that you're able to like sing out a whole, like, you know, Ariana Grande song, then you're probably not exercising hard enough. So yeah, that's a good test of there right there. You can talk, but you're not singing. I like that. And make sure you're drinking plenty of fluids and wear clothes that are appropriate and wear shoes that are appropriate. Good common sense, okay? You don't need a special workout outfit. You don't have to go and buy some expensive leotard or something like that. Just get some shorts that fit, comfortable top, and some shoes that you like to walk in. You're ready to exercise. Check with your doctor too, especially if you haven't exercised too much before and you want to start. Just do a quick check and be like, hey, before I start this exercise program, can we get a quick, check at the old ticker there and make sure I'm doing all right, and maybe check a few more things, and just, you know, be sure that it's okay to do a different exercise routine than what you're used to. And again, I don't mean, oh, I'm going to go for a walk once a week. I mean, like, if you're going to start any kind of real exercise routine, like going to the gym where you never went to the gym before, or doing like lifting and heavy running or something, you know, make sure you're okay for that. Now, some healthy choices for nutrition. Again, it's like exercise. We talked about this a little bit, but making changes in nutrition, you want to make small changes, realistic changes. Do not try to go from like, I'm eating junk food to I'm eating all healthy food. Your body will reject it. I'll tell you this, the one time in my life I tried doing that, I tried like going all healthy. I tried drinking wheatgrass juice and eating quinoa. I was throwing up within 2 days. My body rejected it because it's used to pizza, tacos, nachos, and hot dogs. I can't just go from that to that. And your body won't either, and it will not do well. Okay? Your body will reject food it's not used to. So take it slow, make small changes, and try to change what you eat, like maybe one meal at a time. Maybe do breakfast first, then do dinner, then do whatever. Make little changes. Small changes, something better than nothing. Okay? Eating breakfast is a good idea too. And not all of us are hungry for breakfast, but eating breakfast is good because it starts the metabolism for the day. You might think, oh, I'm going to skip breakfast because I'm on a diet. But that's the worst meal to skip. You're better off skipping a late dinner than you are skipping breakfast. Okay? So think about some diet tips that maybe you've used throughout your life that have worked for you or that you've known have worked for others. And I want to hear about those in class. I'm going to stop here and we'll pick back up about your role as a caregiver. Okay, now back on talking about your role as a caregiver. Remember that your self-care and your well-being are essential to your job, your role as a caregiver. Be proud of what you're doing. Be proud of what you're accomplishing. You're making a difference. One person, one life, one act makes a difference. Okay? It's like that story about the little girl with the seashells, where she says, "Oh, the beach is full of all these little oysters or seashells or whatever it is. They're getting washed up on shore, and there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them." And so she says, "Oh, I'm going to start throwing them back in the ocean." So she picks them up and starts throwing these little animals back in the ocean. And someone comes over and says, "Why are you bothering to do this? You're not going to be able to save all these. There's hundreds and hundreds all over the beach, and you're not going to make a difference." And then she thinks about it for a second, and she picks up one, and she throws it back in the ocean. And she says, "I made a difference for that one." And that's true. You make a difference every day when you make an effort. Okay? So remember your importance and what you're doing and the essential worker that you are. So be proud of what you do. All right, jump over now to page 265. In summary, just remembering that many aspects of your life can cause you stress. There's many reasons stress can occur, and there's many good ways to help with your self-care, having boundaries, saying no, and exercising and eating right. All ways to help you. So now, checkpoint questions. Go ahead and answer your checkpoint questions. Okay? Be ready to discuss them in class. Jump over here to page 266. This talks about your personal self-care plan. I'm not going to make you do this, but if you want to do it and then discuss it in class, if you know there's areas of your life you want to make a change in and you want to do a little self-discovery, feel free to go ahead, because I'd like to hear if you do have a plan to do this, but you don't have to do this. This is optional. All right, over to page 267. Final lesson of the final chapter, surviving loss and grief. In this lesson, you're going to know how to identify losses that a client or long-term care may experience. You'll recognize symptoms and signs associated with loss, understand why self-care is important during grieving, and where to find strategies and resources to help with the grieving process. We also have a couple of key terms, as always. There's anticipatory grief, meaning grief that's going to happen before something happens. It hasn't happened yet, but you're already saying, "Oh, I know this is going to happen and I'm worried about it." Could be loss of anything. Remember, not just a person. There's many things you can lose in your life. Grief is an emotional, physical reaction to a great loss. And there's hospice, which is a place where people who are going to die will go, that focuses more on the comfort and the quality of life rather than trying to save lives. You know what I mean? So we reduce the pain, we reduce the suffering, and we try to let them have their final days of life be something happy and memorable and enjoyable to the best we're able to. So that's basically it. And the overview, of course, is that grief is a natural reaction to loss, whether it's the loss of a person, a job, a loved one, a special thing, a privilege, an ability that you once had, anything you can grieve the loss of. And clients and caregivers will experience grief and loss. So just make sure you're practicing good self-care and managing your own grief. Well, how do we do that? Let's see. Page 268 talks about grief. Now, grief is an emotional and physical reaction to loss, causing pain and difficult emotions. It can make feelings overwhelming, and it can make life very difficult for someone experiencing grief. You have to be sensitive to people who may be experiencing loss and grief, because it's a very tough time for them. All right? No one's saying you have to understand what they're going through, because guess what? You won't. Everyone experiences loss and grief differently. And someone might have lost the same exact thing you did, but it doesn't mean they're going to feel the same way or get over it the same way you did. So keep that in mind when you're offering your help or advice. There's many things that you can lose, not just people, as I said. You can lose physical abilities. Maybe someone used to be able to walk and now they can't. They lose their privacy or their control. Maybe before they lived on their own and they didn't need someone helping them. And now they have a full-time live-in caregiver because this disease is degenerative and they can't live by themselves anymore. Maybe they lose their self-esteem, or they lose their friends because they're having these new health problems, they can't get out and socialize anymore or make new friends or spend time with the people they love because they're worried about getting them sick. So there's all kinds of things that can create these grief and loss, all right? So keep in mind, many, many ways grief can occur. Grief as a caregiver that you may experience that are kind of unique to you as a caregiver. You're working with people who are part of the vulnerable population in many cases, all right? Many times you might have grief that you see that your recipient is going through. They may lose someone special, something might happen to them, they're suffering anguish, or your client may pass away. And as a result, you're going to go through a special kind of grief that sort of mirrors the grief of the client or the loss of the client themselves. Okay? So keep that in mind as well. You have grief of your own that you can be going through. There are a lot of symptoms of grief here. Wow, look at all these. And a lot of these symptoms, they are very, very similar to symptoms of other things too. So these are things that you can expect to feel while grieving. These wouldn't necessarily be things that you look at and say, because I'm feeling this, I must be grieving. No, it's more like I'm grieving, therefore feeling these things is normal. That's kind of the difference between these as symptoms. So you've got lots of emotional symptoms you can feel. There's mental symptoms that'll happen when you're just basically, you're not yourself. You're just discombobulated. You can't think clearly. You can't act clearly. You're just not yourself. Physical symptoms, lots of things can go wrong with the body when your body just kind of feels like, I can't go on. I can't function right now. I don't want to function right now. Social symptoms and spiritual symptoms as well. Okay? A lot of people go through some social symptoms of just pulling back from people or not wanting to be around people when they're grieving because they feel like they're at their lowest and they don't want to present themselves to other people. They stop taking care of themselves. They stop worrying about their hygiene or appearance, and they just pull into themselves. And then there's the spiritual as well, which is when people basically say, why did my spiritual, higher power abandon me? Why aren't they doing anything to help me? Is this what God's plan is for my life? And they get upset and they fight against their own spirituality sometimes. Turn away from it. All right, over to 269. There is a normal, natural process to grieving, okay? But there is no specific time frame that grieving will follow. Weeks, months, years, okay? But there is sort of some things that are normal with the grieving process that we'll identify here. There's keys to moving on, and there's keys to moving through the grieving process. But there's no surefire cure. It's not a disease. It's not a symptom that can just go away if you just think happy thoughts and smile enough and watch enough comedies and spend enough time with your friends. It doesn't just go away, but it gets better over time. And some days it gets worse, but then it gets better again. It never just keeps getting worse unless that's where you put your mind at and say that's what you want for it. You put yourself in there and you decide, I'm not going to come out. That's when it gets worse, is when you give up and stop trying. But as long as you're trying, it will always get better. If you're experiencing the grief, make sure you're a good listener. Listen to yourself. Listen to other people if they've experienced similar grief as well. Use other people and use support groups and use organizations that are there to help people through a grieving process. Whatever the grief is and whatever the loss you experienced, there's probably a group out there of a lot of similar-minded people that have gone through it and are willing to talk to you and tell you how they got through it. Okay? So nothing wrong with reaching out for help. And make sure that you're acknowledging and feeling and expressing the emotions too. Don't push it down and hide it and say, I don't have time to be sad. I'll mourn later. Let yourself feel the grief. It's okay. It's natural. It's normal. There's some rituals that people do and ways that they can find that'll make their grief seem easier. Okay? Some of these to one of you or two of you might seem silly. You might be like, oh, I'm going to make a quilt. I'm going to make a quilt. What am I doing making a quilt? That's my opinion of it. But to someone else, they might say, that's a really nice thing. I got a buddy of mine, and he is an amazing person at making quilts. He gave me a quilt for Christmas a couple of years ago, actually. And so some people, that's like, man, that's their jam. Think about some ways that maybe you would address your symptoms of grief. And let's talk about those in class. Jot them down. We'll talk about them in class. Take a break. We'll be right back. All right, and now moving over to support for grief and loss. Face-to-face support is a great way to help you when you're going through the grieving process. Having a solid person there to listen, to ask, to advise, and just to be there for you is a wonderful support system. Share how you're feeling with them. Share the difficulties you're going through, even if it's awkward or difficult, because those feelings have to be addressed and validated. In addition to friends and family, draw faith, draw strength from your religion or your culture or any organization that you currently belong to of people that maybe are like-minded with you. Doesn't matter what it is. You could belong to like a gaming group and you're going through something, you're talking to your fellow gamers, and maybe they'll have things that they can tell you and you know, a caring ear and a shoulder to cry on. You know, there's all kinds of people in the world that are good people that will help you and reach out and be there for you if you need them. So it's on you to ask, though. Most people aren't going to interfere because we've been taught to kind of like mind our own business, haven't we? So if we want help, we're going to have to reach out and ask for it sometimes. Sometimes you do have to seek professional help, though. If the grief becomes something that is affecting your life to the extent that you're no longer living the life you could live before, you've lost your job. You're losing other relationships that are important to you. Your health is failing. Things are going wrong to the point that your grief makes it impossible to live a life with any sort of meaning or joy. It's time to get professional help at that point. Okay? Seek out the therapy, seek out the psychiatrist, seek out the doctor, whoever it is you need to talk to get the help you need, get that help. Okay? Do not let grief consume you and become your whole world, because it is terrible what happened, but it cannot destroy your life. You cannot let it. You still have many happy days ahead of you, and you have to be looking for those days and trusting that there are better days ahead. Therapists will help you to find these days. All right, over to page 270 now. Whew, heavy stuff, right? If we're supporting other people who are grieving or facing death, that can be a tough topic to talk about, can it? Talking about death to someone who's dying can be a little worrisome. Personally, I know, I'm afraid. No, I don't actually have a fear of death. I'm not worried about dying. I feel like when I die, I'm gone, and one of a couple things will happen. None of them sound unpleasant to me. So I'm kind of like, well, when I die, I die. I'm not afraid of it. I'm not worried about it. So when people talk to me about death, I'm very open and candid and honest about it. But there's many people that are very, very scared to die. They're very nervous and worried because they truly don't know what happens later. They don't have any faith in the afterlife. They don't have any faith they don't know what's going on. And so it can be very worrisome about people when they think about death and dying. And so you have to be respectful and mindful of people's feelings on this. And don't try to push your own faiths and ideas and concepts of the life or life after death or lack thereof upon them, whether you're a gospel-thumping Bible person or you're a God-denying atheist or whatever, whoever you are, and whatever your stance is on the afterlife. Make sure that your clients and the people you come to realize that they're not alone. Okay? Don't knock what they're feeling, because what they're feeling is what they're feeling. Let them know people care and that you care enough to listen. You can talk about important things from their life and significant events that'll make them feel better about the life they've lived. Help them cope with their fears and emotions, and find ways for them to help say goodbye to the people they care about. Because when they're faced with their mortality and they know they're dying and maybe they're in hospice or something, it's time to say goodbye to people. And try to help them to do this where you can. But don't push your own ideas and concepts on them. That won't be helpful. Be available. Let them talk, but also be quiet and listen when they do want to talk. Saying things like, if you want to talk about this, I'm here for you. I don't really know what you're going through, but I can promise you have my support, and I'm there to listen. How can I support you? Open-ended questions like that let them, in their own words and in their own time, tell you what help they actually need or what advice they want. And don't forget to feel and express your own feelings also. It's okay to be sad for someone if they're feeling sad, or to be happy if they've experienced something great. You don't have to be stone-faced and all stoic and creepy. Feel. You're human. Let yourself feel the emotions that you feel. Just make sure that you're being appropriate with the expressions of your emotions. You don't want to devolve into a wailing, crying, sobbing person, when your client is not in that state. You don't want to be escalating their grief to another level to the point that they're comforting you about what they're coming to you about. So remember, you're still the professional. And while it's okay to show and express emotions, to remember that you're there to support them in their time of need. Everyone's different, and people will feel and discuss and talk about their grief in different ways, won't they? Every culture is different. Every culture has its own way and their own little nuances of what is and what is not okay to talk about and show. Let's think about your culture. What is the way that your culture experiences and talks about and works through grief? In class, I'd like to hear about it. I'd like to hear about you specifically, how you were raised, and how in your life, through the loved ones you've dealt with, how was grief handled? I'd like to hear about that. So we'll talk about that in class. And sometimes doing nothing and saying nothing is better than doing something. That's kind of like a you need to know it approach, though. So you read the room. If the client seems to want to talk, be there to listen. If they want to be left alone, pick up on those cues and give them their space. As long as you're not doing anything unhealthy or harmful to themselves, let them have their space if they need their time and their space to grieve. All right? Okay, final page. Moving over to page 271. The final thing we're going to talk about is hospice. And that's when a client has basically like 6 months or less to live. The doctors are pretty sure they're not going to live more than that time. They might be eligible to choose to go to hospice. And that's where they're going to go to a place where they're going to live. They're going to be as comfortable as possible. They'll be given pain medications. They'll be provided with entertainment and things to do and things to keep them busy. And, whatever extent they're able to do these things, they'll be provided with whatever can be done for them. Friends and family who come visit, the nursing staff will take care of them, and they'll be just made as comfortable as possible during their late stage of life while they're passing on to the next wherever it is they're going to go. Hospice can be done at a facility. It can be done in a client's home. Hospice nurses can be in the home with the client. There's plenty of times where there's a live-in nurse at a client's home who is dying. Many people want to die at home. They don't want to die in a building they've never lived in before. So they might want to just be like, hey, I know I'm dying. I want to live my last few months out in my home. I just need a hospice nurse to help me do that. And if hospice is involved in client's care, the hospice nurse will work with the care team like you to develop a good care plan. So if you're with a hospice nurse, listen to them. They know what they're talking about. Don't be afraid to offer advice and insight if you know something that they might not, or if you've experienced something that maybe they haven't. But it's a good rule to generally defer to the hospice nurse if they're giving you advice on how to talk to or how to address certain topics with the client. Whew. All right. So in summary, remember that everyone does experience grief and loss differently. We have to be mindful and respectful of the ways that we talk to and address and help and listen to people when we are discussing these topics. And remember that you are not above these as well, and you will go through the same experiences as your client and other people in life as well. If we love, we can lose. Anyone who loves can suffer loss. So if there's anything or anyone or anything in this world you care about, then you can go through loss. And that's why it's good to know and be prepared for and know how to get through, mending the grief and the loss. Down to the checkpoints. Final checkpoint of the day, of the module, of the entire classes. Fill in your checkpoint questions, flip over, do your final module review, and then we will see you tomorrow in class on the last day of the book stuff. After this, we're getting into all kinds of other fun things. So thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in class.